Okay, good morning, everyone. So we're going to be continuing from where we stopped last week, and we're talking about creating tables. So I said I made mention of primary key and foreign keys and how they help us create and organize our tables. So we're going to be going deeper into that. Okay. So the primary key uniquely identifies each record in the table. So let's say you want to create merge two tables together. You merge them on an ID, right? So we talked about left join and using left join last week. And joining two tables, you have to join them on an ID that is on each table. So that is what we call the primary key. So the first table has the primary key, while the second table has the foreign key. Okay, I'm going to explain that very soon. So primary key must contain unique values and cannot be null values, which means any any column you are using as a primary key must have there must be items inside that column, or the rows must not be null values, must not be empty. There must be unique values, and a table can only have one primary key in the table, and the primary key can consist of single or multiple column keys. So we're going to look at a practical aspect of that. So the following SQL queries creates a primary key on the ID column when the person's table is created. So I'm going to explain this whole code here. So we are creating a table called persons, okay, and we are creating an ID column, right? So creating an ID column, and we know that IDs cannot be letters; they are always numbers, right? IDs are always numbers. So that's why we said ID integer. So you're saying any value you are putting into this ID column must be an integer, must be a number. And this means that, okay, it cannot be a null value because we want to assign it as our primary key, right? Then we have last name, varchar. We are trying to say here that, okay, this column is for last name, which means the person can use letters or numbers. Variable, this varchar means variable character. All right, it means that the person can use letters or numbers depending on the type of name they have, and it must not exceed 255 characters. Okay, so we also see here that it must not also be null, which means there must not be empty values in this last name column. Then we have first name varchar, the same thing like the last name. You want to put your name to be letters or numbers, and it must not exceed 255. Why there's no not null here means because it could contain null values depending. If the person has a last name, they are okay with that. If the person does not have the first name, it's fine. We can identify the person with the ID or the last name. So we have age. We know that age is always a number, right? So that's why we're assigning age as integer. We're assigning age as integer. Age cannot be letters. So here we want to specify our primary key. So what we have to say is, okay, what do we want to name as our primary key? ID, right? We now write primary key ID. Okay, so that means we've assigned ID as our primary key. Then the next thing we do is close this bracket here. So we're going to go into more practical view soon using the Jupyter Notebook. But this just to give us a clear overview of how to create a primary key, how to create a table, and how to create columns in that table. All right. So to allow naming of the primary key constraints or defining the primary key constraints on multiple columns, use the following SQL. Use the following SQL um, syntax. So this means create table like we've discussed all this. So I'm going to explain all this. This means that primary key is ID last name. So remember I said your primary key cannot have null values. This means that we can also use the ID and the last name for our primary key. So this could be maybe we have customer details or staff details, and the staff details does not have ID, does not have ID column, but it has last name. We can use the last name as our primary key. So that's why we are assigning primary key as ID and last name. Okay. So to allow naming of the primary key constraint and for defining primary key constraint on a multiple column, use the following syntax. So what primary key constraint means that it's okay, I'll just use this to explain it. In the above example, there's only one primary key person. However, the value of the primary key is made up of two columns, ID and last name. So which means there's only one primary key, PK person. Okay, so constraint means PK person. So we want to say, okay, if you want to use sole primary keys for that column, you can just use PK person. Then the next thing we want to do is if we want to use just one primary key, we can call the name of the primary key directly, ID or last name. So, but the primary key is practically made up of two columns here. All right, so that's what it means over there. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is how to alter our table using the primary key.